noted writer-director Atul Sabharwal. After wowing us with his sterling writing in Jubilee, now he's ready with Berlin, which he has written and directed. Welcome, Atul, and thanks for talking to the Tribune.
Thank you so much, Nonika ji. My pleasure.
Uh, so, Berlin, I believe, is a spy thriller. And right now we have kind of a surfeit of spy thrillers. So, how is Berlin different?
Berlin is different in the sense that I think it's the only spy thriller which has a deaf mute character at its center. That's the thrust of the narrative, and it does it does play on the realistic side of it rather than the action spy thrillers which have sort of been flooding the cinemas or the OTTs right now. And it's a little more rooted in reality as opposed to the other spy thrillers that I've seen. So, in fact, the spy thriller genre is very vast, and there is a scope for doing a lot of things. And I think we have managed to scratch something different that is being done in the country at the moment.
Yeah, so it's not in the kind of not like Tigers in the Eye.
No, of course not. It is not like Tiger Zinda Hai or Mission Impossible, but it is more in the tradition of, if you talk about books, in the tradition of authors like John Le Carre or Len Deighton or Eric Ambler. It's these three authors who sort of
So,
the
yeah, please go
I mean
ahead.
the peak of the British spy novel writing. It's in that sense.
And why have we called it Berlin? It has something to do with Germany.
It has, but why it's called Berlin, that's a plot point in the film. So for that, you'll have to see the film.
Yeah. Spy thrillers, as it is, I mean, like there's a lot of thrill, there's a lot of mystique and mystery, and on top of it, you have a character who's deaf and mute. So how have
Ji.
you been able to negotiate all of this together? Was it very tough?
We have somehow managed to. We had a lot of trial and error. In fact, when we were doing our pre-production, both Apar Shakti and Ishwak Singh were taking sign language classes. So I used to shoot them on my phone, and then my editor Irene used to edit that phone footage just for us to get a sense of how it will flow in the film. So it took a lot of trial and error, but eventually then we arrived at a rhythm.
You were talking of your actors Ishwak and Parshakti Khurana. Parshakti Khurana happens to be from our city Chandigarh, which is where the Tribune is based, and Ishwak
Ji,
also happens to be a Punjabi. And
ji.
is the Sabharwal in your name comes from your Punjabi roots?
Yes.
Though I believe you've grown up in Agra.
I have grown up in Agra, but मेरे तो चंगी पंजाबी ना इशवाक बोल सकता है ना अपार बोल सकता है. If you understand what Punjabi is, I'm
Okay.
a more of a ठेठ Punjabi than both of them.
ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਇਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਤਿੰਨ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਮਿਲੇ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਕਿਦਾਂ how did it all work out and how was the Punjabi bonhomie?
Punjabi bonhomie was very good. Literally ਅਸੀਂ ਪਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਖਾਂਦੇ ਗਏ ਤੇ ਫਿਲਮ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ ਗਏ. ਅਪਾਰ ਦੀ ਮੰਮੀ ਪਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਭੇਜਦੀ ਰਹਿੰਦੀ ਸੀ, ਅਸੀਂ ਖਾਂਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਸ਼ੂਟਿੰਗ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ.
As simple as that.
Yeah, as simple as that.
Okay.
Once the preparation is there, then everything tends to fall in place.
But on a serious note, what do you think is, I mean, which element of a spy thriller you think is non-negotiable?
I think ingenuity of its characters, that they, in the situation of crisis, they come up with something ingenious that I think is non-negotiable, so to say. But because it's all about their surviving skills, and people who don't have the action skills like James Bond or Pathan or Jawan, or I don't think Jawan is a spy thriller, but yeah, Pathan or Tiger, they have to have the other ingenious skills, like how would they negotiate themselves out of a situation. But that skill, I think, is essential for all narrative characters anyway. at least in an action film or a thriller film. Like Andhadhun is not a spy thriller, but the
Mhm.
character is very ingenuous, so to say.
Yeah. But in fact, when I was reading about Berlin, I was reminded of Andhadhun, and
Haji.
like in Andhadhun, his blindness is itself a character. But whether he's blind or not blind, there is mystery around it. Is can we say the same thing about this deaf and mute character of yours, or we'll have to watch the movie?
No, there is no mystery around whether he's deaf, mute, or not. That much
Mhm.
is there that he is deaf, mute. I mean, we are not playing any trick in the initial synopsis when we are saying he's deaf, mute. So, and that
Okay.
much that is pretty much established in the beginning of the film that he is a deaf, mute person. Ishwak.
And choosing your characters, of course, apart from the Punjabi bonhomie, I mean, like,
Ji.
how did you? I mean, like, what was your casting process like? How did you zero down on these two actors? And what is it that they have brought to the film?
I think what they have brought from their side is definitely their acting talent and immense dedication towards the preparation because it was very challenging for both of them to go through the sign language process and learn it and make it by heart because otherwise it would have shown on screen that they are not prepared. So that is something they brought on the table. And as far as the casting of it goes, it went through the usual process, Monica ji, that we met a couple of actors, we narrated the script to them, auditioned, and somehow Ishwak and Apar were the two people, whom I also liked, and they also liked the script, and they came on board. So it was pretty usual in that way. Ishwak, I had my casting director Mayank had worked with him before. He had he had cast him into another film, so that is how he knew Ishwak. And of course, I had seen Ishwak in Patal Lok,
Mhm.
and I really liked his performance. And as far as Apar was concerned, because he had done an audition for Jubilee, and I had seen that audition. When we were casting this film, Jubilee had not yet started shooting, but
Mhm.
I had seen Apar's audition, so that is why I reached out to him for the serious part.
So you are talking of Jubilee, and I mean Jubilee, you gave us a very different world. Yesterday, golden period of Indian cinema, and here you move into a different genre completely. So what exactly is a writer's mind like? What is happening there all the time that you can move from one kind of one subject to another, and what is a writer's mind really like? Is how fertile is that space?
I mean, I hope it's very fertile, but that is the joy of stories. When I was doing Aurangzeb, it was about Gurgaon and cops and the real estate, and then when I was doing Powder, it was about Bombay and the narcotics mafia here. So you find stories and then different worlds and what excites you and what gets made. So, I mean, variety is a little good that you get to explore creatively different worlds also for yourself. So, yeah, it's the
But
byproduct of a lot of reading, a lot of watching a lot of documentaries, reading a lot of non-fiction, especially history, and a love for dramatizing anecdotes from history. So it's a combination of a lot of things how these worlds come about as ideas to you.
so would you say there is part imagination and part and lots of research?
I guess so. I think it's part research, part aptitude is what I would like to say. Because you have to have a flair for reading. Because research is something which sounds like very academic. You have to have a certain um, a joy towards exploring different worlds, the worlds that have gone by, like different phases of history of your country or other countries or the region. So I guess it begins with an aptitude or with the taste. taste is a very vast word, but I would say it begins with a taste, and then where that taste leads you in terms of what stories you discover. It's as simple as that.
Jubilee is you were associated with Jubilee. It's a brilliant piece of work. Got
Thank
such
you.
fantastic critics approvals and audience approval as well. I think everyone loved it. But do
Thank
you
you.
think when you are both a writer and a director, then only it is truly your baby? Would you see Berlin is more of your baby than Jubilee because it was directed? The director was different.
No, I don't think that way.
Hmm.
See, whether I'm just writing or I am writing and directing both, yet it requires a full unit to bring these piece of works into existence. And that is true both for Jubilee, that there was a vast team, and for Berlin, that there was a massive team putting these things together. So it's always a collective baby, and as far as the authorship goes, I think if you find a director, if you're just writing it who's in sync with you, then it's as much as your baby as it's his. So I would say, even like, let's say a film like My Wife's Murder or Fir Milenge, because both the directors, Gigi Philip and Revati, gave me that respect and the space to do certain things. So if the director does not deviate or sees value in what you have brought on page, I think uh, it then remains a collective baby, so to speak.
So then that brings me to Class of '83, which you had directed but not written really. I mean, it was based on Hussain Zaidi's book. So how do you, as a writer, are you more generous when you are a director towards writers?
Uh, See, to be honest, that film, Class of '83, has a very a, a fractured approach, so to say, because it's based on a book, but the book was not written when we started filming the film. And that is where there was an idea which was, I think it was, I forgetting whose story it was, like who was the real life character. But then when the book came out, it was about another policeman who was active on the force and was not a dean. So, having said that, I mean, Abhijit had done a draft, and Zaidi Saab had done a good synopsis. Like, that synopsis was my in into the story, and which got me emotionally connected to it. And but I had to sort of sit and write or rewrite a lot of it to be able to bring it into a cohesive and manageable length. So, not an organic way of going around things, but movies have each movie has its own process. So, but I tried to stay true to the that first 5 page synopsis that was given to me by Red Chillies, and I'm assuming it was written by Zaidi Saab, or even if it was written by Zaidi Saab and Abhijit together. I my That was my north star always. That those 5 pages. Anywhere, any given point when we were in doubt while writing, I would just refer back to that synopsis. And so yeah, I would say that I was very, very, very respectful towards those 5 pages, you know, and therefore towards those writers.
So you often swear by the magic of 70 the the experience that we gain in theaters. Yet you have found your real magic on OTT. What would you say to that?
I don't know what would I say to that. I want to know what would industry say to that, because there's a certain kind of stories that I love, which uh, which the industry per se has stopped making. Industry has a deep fear of tragedies, and it's ironical that we live in a country which has given box office success primarily on tragedies, which is Mother India, Mughal e Azam. Like, all our iconic box office successes are massive tragedies.
Yeah,
The
Sardar.
writers we celebrate the most, Salim Javed, uh, are best when they have done tragedies, whether it was Diwar or Sholay or Shakti or. uh, Trishul. So I would say that OTTs are doing tragedy now, and I
Mm.
started making film, or even when I did Powder, there was no OTT in existence. But anywhere, any medium where you get to explore the scope of doing drama and tragedies, not essentially sad endings. The tragedies can have happy ending also, but that kind of drama, what Mr. Prakash Mehra did with the film like Mukaddar Ka Sikandar or Zanjeer, or Yash Chopra ji did with Kabhi Kabhi or Trishul, or even Lamhe up much up until late in his career. And those are the stories I've always loved to tell, or the form. So I guess that's more of an industry question as to why we are not making good tragedies anymore. And whenever somebody makes one, like the last one which comes to my mind was Razi or Talwar, and they both did very well.
But are you more inclined towards tragedies, so to say?
I
Because
am,
Jubilee.
obviously.
Mhm. And why would that be? Because it can be more layered.
It has a see. There is no why to it. It's like, why would you? I mean, choose to cook pasta when pav bhaji is also available as an option. It just again comes back to the taste and your formative years, over which you have no control, but what you are seeing and what. So I have grown up in the era where Doordarshan was the only viewing medium, and Doordarshan, for whatever it was worth, it was the only channel and seemed very boring at the time. But because you have no other entertainment, you are forced to watch Hindustani classical music programs. You're forced to watch movies by Sai Paranjpe and all those things. So uh, your influences become those, and your exposure today. Like my niece is growing up, and one has to make a conscious effort if one has to make her listen to classical music, Hindustani or Western. It's not because she has an option. She can go on her phone and watch whatever animation she likes watching. But so I guess when you're surrounded by that kind of an atmosphere, where when you're growing up, you're exposed to films of Satyajit Ray and Bimal Roy on television, and then in theaters you have Yash Chopra and Prakash Mehra, and then when you grow a little further, then you have Mani Ratnam and Ram Gopal Verma, or even Shekhar Kapoor with Masoom or Bandit Queen, and those become your heroes. So I guess those, when you are so moved by those kind of films or plays or TV shows, Bunyad, for example, was a huge reference for Jubilee. Tamas was a huge reference. So these are not feel-good programs per se. They were Tamas and Bunyad were telling the stories of partition and the refugees. So I don't know whether I've answered your question, but I've
No,
meandered
no,
a
you
bit.
have partially, but that has also given rise to another question, because Punjabis are so balle balle Punjabi, and uh, that indefatigable Punjabi spirit, we are. So I mean, like, we don't care much. I mean, on the face of it, of course, deep down we are great thinkers as well. But on the face of it, we are seen as somebody who wouldn't be so interested in tragedy.
I mean, I think we are balle balle mostly in Hindi films, which are made by non-Punjabis mostly sometimes, or at
Yeah.
least people who have not been through. So the first stories that I heard when I was growing up, even before the television came, were the partition stories by my grandparents. Now, I could be a, I could have been a Punjabi who grew up in Bombay, whose parents have not been through, uh, let's say, partition, or the grandparents have not been through partition. Then I would have told different stories. Then your Punjab becomes that colorful बल्ले बल्ले सरसों के खेत नदी किनारे. So it's also what you are growing up with is essentially what you tell. I mean, when B.R. Chopra is making Dharamputra, then he's definitely not making Balle Balle Punjabi. He's making, and Yash Chopra is directing, B.R. Chopra is producing. So, so that, I think, that whole Balle Balle Punjabi, the Bollywoodization, is very recent. It's just the 90s
Right.
phenomena, and that is also, if you look at it, as the late second generation who has grown up in Bombay and is a little more adrift from the history as compared to a small town person or a person growing in Delhi. Because Bombay also was not that touched by partition as opposed to how Delhi was touched or the northern India
Yeah.
was touched. So those areas are still around you, even if you have been born in 80s or late 70s or mid 80s or early 80s. So you can't escape those narratives. So I guess it's also where you are coming from and who you are.
So I mean, like as you're saying that most movies of
बट किसी
Punjabis
ਦੇ ਵਿਆਹ 'ਚ
are
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰਾ lਓ
made
ਬੱਲੇ
by
ਬੱਲੇ
Punjabis. Huh? Will you
ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ
will
ਵਿਆਹ 'ਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰਾ ਲਓ ਬੱਲੇ ਬੱਲੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਪਾ ਦਈਏ ਪੂਰਾ ਭੰਗੜਾ
you no, but I mean, as a Punjabi, would you care to portray Punjabis or make a Punjabi film?
Oh, I would love to. I have always been, like growing up on Punjabi films has been a huge part of my childhood. So I've seen Madi the Diva or Chand Pardesi, and I still listen to songs of Chand Pardesi. And I mean, the other one was, I think there was one film called Uchchadar Babe Nanak Da, which had a lot of non-Punjabis acting in Punjabi. Like Tanuja ji is very fluent in that film with Punjabi. If you see, she's playing Kulbhushan Kharbanda's wife. So, so I've grown up on those films on VCR.
Mhm. And
I there was one film which I'm forgetting, which had Tara Singh and Satish Kaul and Preeti Sapru that I've seen in a cinema hall in Agra. So, yeah, may
and
love to do that.
more recently, have you seen it?
I saw more
Okay.
uh, with Amy work. I think also seen Manje Bistre and
That's, quite a few,
uh,
huh?
1984 Daljit
Mhm.
Wali that I have seen.
That, so, if you were to make a Punjabi film, will you go back? I mean, will it be a contemporary subject or would you dig into its past?
I don't think it will be a contemporary subject because I've not lived in Punjab. So whatever the contemporary Punjab is, whether it was in Udta
Mm.
Punjab or in Daljit's films or Amy's films or Gippy's films, they live there, or maybe they live in Canada, but they definitely visit Chandigarh. Whatever their exposure is, I don't have that exposure. So for me, it would mostly be either the pre-independence Punjab or at
Mm.
least the Punjab of the time when I was in North India, in Delhi, when I used to visit Ludhiana, where my relatives are, or Chandigarh, which then stopped after 80s, where you're not an active participant there. Now you go to visit relatives, but you're not
Mm.
affected by day-to-day realities. So yeah, it would be either in the 80s or the 70s or 60s or 40s, like that.
And is Berlin also a period piece or is it contemporary?
Yes, it is. It's set in the 90s. It's set in
Mm.
1993, to be
Right.
precise.
Going back to OTT, writers are being hailed as as the kings of that medium. Do you think that's a they deserve that crown, and whether they get enough recognition? They're getting it.
If they're, I mean, being called kings, मैं तो सुनिया नहीं, but अगर कह रहे हैं तो फिर पैसा भी किंग वाला दे दो, किसी को आप अर्जी
Or
लगाओ हमारी.
whether you get it or you don't.
ना जी किथे.
Asha. So, but then, I mean, we've been saying this for a long time that how OTT is the writer's medium. So, who gets the maximum money then? Still the stars?
No, that would be unfair to say in the case of OTTs. I think the producers get a lot of money, but most of, in the case of OTT, a lot of it goes into the making of those shows. Like, I don't think there is any salary winner in Jubilee, for example. A lot of money has been spent on that show, but that has been spent on the show. It has not gone into people's personal bank accounts. It's gone on the sets, it's gone onto its massive vision that Vikram has. So in that sense, like for example, maybe Bambai Meri Jaan, whatever money has gone in has gone for the scale of it. And whatever then the brand of that producer commands. It's not like films where, unless when they're being held by a marquee star, that most of the budget gets into the marquee star's salary. That's not the case with OTTs. But
So
whether the
Berlin.
writers are the topmost paid in
Mm,
the category of OTTs, that I'm
mm,
not very sure of, unless you're a little more senior, like Sudeep Sharma or Vikramaditya, where you can also be a showrunner.
mm,
So maybe though that's where the money is. But since I've not seen those budgets, I won't be able to tell. But they're still not as
mm.
diversely skewed as in a Hindi mainstream
Right.
feature film reality.
So would you prefer this medium over cinema? Over, I mean, theatrical experience. Where can we see Berlin? Of course, it's going to be, it's a part of Indian Film Festival of at Los Angeles. And when do
It's
Indian
also
audience?
part of Mumbai Mami Festival. Uh,
Okay,
that announcement came yesterday,
right.
so that's also there. And
Hmm.
yeah, if you come to Mumbai, you can see it at Mami. Otherwise, ਜਦੋਂ भी studio release करेगा theater ਵਿੱਚ, I'm sure they will release it in Chandigarh because अपार और आयुष्मान का शहर, रैलियां निकल जाएंगी पिक्चर देखने की.
No, but it will be a theatrical release. Would you prefer it to be a theatrical release?
I think all films, big or small, deserve to be theatrical because
Hmm.
though I'm aware of the reality of what everybody keeps saying, P and A, the print and advertising, but it's a medium which or it's a revenue stream which I don't think should be let gone so easily.
Hmm.
And because a film coming in theater can definitely come on OTT again, so it's not
Hmm.
that they're mutually exclusive.
Hmm.
And I think every film, for whatever it's worth, because it's a very different emotional experience, even if you're watching a small film on projected on a big screen, whether it was Masoom or Newton or even Caught.
Hmm.
So yeah,
So every
theater is
director.
always should be there.
So every director essentially makes it for a 70, I mean, for a big screen outing.
I think they do. I
Mm.
can speak of myself that I definitely do.
Mm. And since this is being made by Z Studios, I mean, they can easily afford to first release it in theaters.
That is something you'll have to ask Z Studios, but I'm sure
so,
they can.
so tell me if Atul Sabharwal, the director, is any different from Atul Sabharwal, the writer, and if they are, would be the difference?
No, since I have written only screenplays so far, I think they are the same people because uh, I'm writing on page a plan for the shooting. So, and even when I'm writing for somebody else, I'm writing a plan for the shooting. Now, how much that director would agree with it or not, that is up to her or him. But I guess not very different.
Mm.
A writer is a little more lavish because he has nothing to lose or she has nothing to lose. The director has to be a little more pragmatic.
Mm. And so on the sets of Berlin, I mean, who takes over then finally?
Of course, the director has to take over. No?
Mm.
There is no second way about it.
And you would cut your own scenes as mercilessly if it were another writer.
See, that mercilessly and is a very loosely used term, and that is
Mm.
something the executive use it more than any creative person because uh,
Okay.
I don't think there is any mercilessness in the whole process. All you are doing is to try
Mm.
and make the narrative better each day, with your team, with your actors, with your technicians. And each aspect of it, whether you're adding a line or removing a line, is a joy. So there is never any mercilessness in it. Like I'm also in the process of writing a novel. I started it during the COVID. So whether I add a line or remove a line or remove a paragraph, there is never because नॉवल पे तो कोई ऐसा एम्बार्गो नहीं है ना 300 पेज की भी हो
No.
सकती है 150. So, but I think people who are not creative, they have invented this whole thing of be merciless, be ruthless, kato. ये वो क्योंकि वो उनकी लिंगो है, उनको उनको कहते हैं
Mhm.
बजट भी रूथलेस हो जाओ, सेट पे भी
Mhm.
रूथलेस हो जाओ, बट ruthless, I don't think ruthlessness or mercilessness go with any creative process, you know, whether it's filmmaking, whether it's anything. So yeah, we have adapted to the need of the day, as all teams do, whether they are doing Jubilee or whether they are doing Pathan or whether they're doing Berlin. But it's always a joyous exercise to do because it's a part of the exploration.
So tell me a little about your novel and whether that will also be adapted on screen someday. First about the novel.
I don't know whether it will be adapted on the screen because I don't have plans about that. But it's something that I've. It's a story essentially of my father's father, my Dadaji, and it starts in the West Pakistan in 1930s and how that journey leads to partition. So it's essentially about that.
And you're writing it in English
Anji.
or Hindi? हाँ, and
नहीं
it will be
अंग्रेजी
out.
च ही लिख रहे हैं हिंदी पढ़न
Uh,
वाले किन्ने रह गए ने मैं ते पढ़ सकना
so what else are you working on? Writing anything or directing?
We have one show with Sony Live Next. It's a web series, and that is something we'll start soon.
Okay, but you can't share any details about that. You're writing it, directing it.
Yes, writing, directing, producing, but can't share any details at the moment. It's tightly under the wraps.
Okay, a thriller. Not no, you can't reveal the genre as well.
No.
Did you work with Ram Gopal Verma for some time?
Gee, I worked with him for quite a long time, from 2002 to 5, 3 years.
So
And we did two
what
films together, Darna Mana and My Wife's Murder.
and what was the most abiding influence of RGV?
I think everything, and because I really looked up to him before I came to the industry, and he was somebody I wanted to work with. And he had a certain way of uh, not giving into market diktats and thinking freely or being very free in terms of his creativity and how to be uh, audacious about it. And that's the word he would use, not mine. That how audacious can you be? How can you cast a rank newcomer next to Ajay Devgan, but put him on a poster in such a way that it looks like a two-star film, not one-star film. So I guess those things have his audacity is something, or is something that I think I've inculcated to a certain extent. Not as much as he would, because what he had was also a gift of being a great salesman, which I don't think I have. So audacity has to be coupled with the charm of a salesmanship. Then those radical ideas go through.
And,
And
and
yeah,
and many feel that he may have lost his touch or his mojo, so to say.
I mean, to each his own. I would not like to comment on that because what I have received from him in terms of knowledge and in my own growth, I would always look at it as something that is rewarding for the lifelong. So whatever he is doing in his life or in his career is completely his choice and his freedom. And maybe uh, what is still true is that he's still being audacious, which none of us can be in that way.
But you've been around for a while now, and what does it take to survive in this industry, especially when you do not really belong to this industry?
I think what really takes is luck because success cements you if you're
Mhm.
successful. And I think it takes more of a luck when you don't have that kind of success. That how do you survive? Because we're always in a high tide situation,
Mm.
in the fear of being washed away. So I guess luck is a huge part of it, and then there is perseverance because when the tide is not going your way, how do you sit patiently in one place, not move around, and keep working on something that would deliver at some point?
How much role do writers really have in the final making of the project? in terms of, let's say, anything, setting, or is that totally a director's call? How much are
Technically,
they
that is
concerned?
totally, technically, it is totally a director's call. But see, I wouldn't know a
Mm.
scenario where, because I've always worked with directors who are very inclusive. I've been
Yeah.
fortunate enough about that. So,
Mm.
uh, and at the same time, I'm not somebody, if I'm just a writer on the project, I would not want to be involved in too many things, because I have
Mm.
chosen to be a writer on that project because I trust a certain director's vision, you know. And I know
Mhm.
that I don't have to explain everything, because I know what she or he will do with it. So once the
Mhm.
trust is there, you also don't want to get involved too much.
And otherwise, do you think, apart from the industry, do you think critics and viewers give enough attention to the writer? I mean, like today?
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੱਸੋ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਹੋ ਫਿਲਮਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਚ? ਅਸੀਂ
ਨਹੀਂ
ਤੇ we are on the opposite side.
ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਹੋਗੇ ਰਿਵਿਊਜ਼ ਆਡੀਅנס ਦੇ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਫੀਡਬੈਕ ਆਂਦੀ ਹੋਏਗੀ
I don't think so, because also, see,
ਹਮ,
ours is not a country which is, we still have low literacy rate as compared to the West, and
ਹਮ,
we have definitely this whole culture of scripts come in the last 20 odd years in this industry, where a
ਹਮ,
bound script has been considered to be a necessity or an entity that should
ਹਮ,
be on the set. But I I don't see it, what you're asking me, to be honest, whether in enough attention. Like, we
ਹਮ,
also don't publish our scripts in a professional way. One or two that have been published, like Avara ki hui hai, ya Vishal ki kuch ek do filmon ki hui hai, Raju
हम्म,
Hirani ki ek do filmon ki hui hai. It is not how a script should be published, or how the script is. So
हम्म,
that attention is not there, but I see there is a deep rooted reason for that. I don't think anybody is trying to, like you see these on YouTube. There are actors round table and directors round tables which happen every year in Hindi cinema. There is
हम्म,
no writers round table, or at least it's not a regular one that I have seen, and I have never been invited to one. So if there is, my knowledge is limited.
so but has is OTT changing certain things
नहीं, ओटीटी क्रांति तो नहीं ला सकता ना, ओटीटी तो पैसे कमाने
uh,
आया है, तो ओटीटी
uh,
मतलब जो हो जाए उसमें, आई डोंट थिंक देयर इज एनी रेवोल्यूशन कमिंग एनीवेयर.
हम्म, okay right so
वहाँ
on a
वेस्ट में
final
तो लोग ओटीटी से अपना हक मांगने के लिए लड़ रहे हैं, तो ओटीटी बेचारा
नहीं
यहाँ
पर
क्या करेगा?
वो जीत भी चुके हैं वैसे लड़ लुड़ के
गुड फॉर देम.
But do you think, now that you brought it up, do you think writers need to, be a collective force in India too?
Writers need to be a collective force everywhere, not just in India.
Mm.
But see,
But mm,
here are, in terms of the copyright, the creator's rights are only very limited in law in India.
mm,
There they have a lot more rights, and over those foundations they can fight for more.
mm,
यहाँ पे अलग है सिनेरियो, क्योंकि लॉ अलग है.
mm,
Not just for the writers, for composers, for lyricists.
mm,
So थोड़ा different scenario है. So we have to get to the grassroots of things if things have to change. We can't just point
mm.
fingers at the industry or OTT or producers or distributors.
And so on a final note, one thing quintessentially Punjabi about you.
One thing quintessential, मैं बोल लेना पंजाबी हो सारे तो बड़ी गल है, but in a very
ਉਹ ਤੇ
cliched manner, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦਿਨ ਦੇ 3 ਟਾਈਮ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਰਾਜਮਾ ਚੌਲ ਖਿਲਾ ਲਓ, ਮੈਂ ਖਾ ਲਾਂਗਾ.
अच्छा उस और भी दिया है नहीं उस तो अलावा would you
I
say
think
it's the
I have a certain deep rooted love in me for Punjab and its music and its rural folk stories, so to say. I am not very much drawn to the urban Punjab because I have not been exposed to it. But the rural Punjab, because my uh, grandfather, my father's father, came from a very rural setting of landlords in Pind Dadan Khan, in which is now in Pakistan, in Jhelum district. So that is the approach that I've seen my paternal side of the grandparents be in. And of course, later on, they became traders and everything. But I think what flows in the blood is, or in my genes, is the rural and the music and the folk part of
So,
it.
so any favorite Punjabi writer or folk music musician?
Oh, Surinder Kaur is
Oh,
my forever love.
okay.
Asa Singh Mastana.
Mm,
Then in writers, of course, there's Bhisham Sani,
mm,
Pash as a poet,
mm,
Amrita
mm,
Preetham,
mm.
but and forever salute to Gurdas Mann Saab. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੁਣ ਕੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ.
Okay.
I've
And
had the
say,
privilege of meeting him also.
ਤੇ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਪੜਿਆ ਇਹ ਕਦੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਰਾਈਟਿੰਗ ਚ ਔਰ ਔਨ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਵਿਲ ਬੀ ਏਬਲ ਟੂ ਸੀ ਇਨ ਸਮ ਟਾਈਮ ਇਨ ਨੀਅਰ ਫਿਊਚਰ
See, a lot of it was there in Jubilee, to be honest. But
ਓਕੇ
ਜਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਉਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਕਰੋਗੇ ਨਹੀਂ, ਉਹਦਾ ਉਹ
ਹਾਂ
ਰਸ ਆਏਗਾ ਨਹੀਂ. तो वो स्क्रिप्ट लेवल ਵਿੱਚ ਸੀਗਾ in the refugee camps and all that ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਾਰਟੀਸ਼ਨ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਸਨ. But I think when you're trying to do a Hindi show, ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਥੋੜੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦਾ ਤੜਕਾ ਹੀ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ. ਸੋਲ ਉਹਦੀ ਦਾਲ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਰ ਹੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ.
ਤੇ
So I guess one will have to. Sorry, go
ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਦੀ
ahead.
ਬਹੁਤ contribution rahi hai film industry ch matlab every other person is a Punjabi, you know, every other talented person I would say is a Punjabi. Do you think they've got their again, you know, do you think there's been enough recognition of this fact?
I think so, but see, one has to always see it in the ethno movements in terms of the in Hindi film industry, because Tamil industry has its own stalwarts and Telugu has its own stalwarts. But the Hindi film industry, because Bombay was such a center of confluence that when the British capital shifted out of Calcutta, the film industry also shifted from Calcutta to Bombay. Then I think so. Bengalis have been one kind of force in Hindi cinema, whether you take Bimal Roy, Rishikesh Bhagat, T.S.D. Burman, R.D. Burman, Sharmila Tagore, we can spend an entire day counting those names. Then I think the next were also the the Muslims who were here, the poets, the lyricists, the composers, जो North India से आए. So after the Nizami collapsed in Lucknow and the United Provinces, you had the lyricists and composers coming from there, Naushad Saab. That is the other force. And then partition, because ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਿਰਾਦਰੀ ਨਿਕਲੇਗੀ ਘਰੋਂ ਉਹੀਓ ਪਹੁੰਚੇਗੀ ਨਾ ਇੱਥੇ. So a lot of Punjabis, because they left their homes in Bombay, and most of them were in Punjab and in what became Pakistan. And since a lot of affluent people were within the Bombay presidency, Karachi was there and Bombay was there, and they came to Bombay. So ਜਿਹੜੀ population ਆ ਗਈ, ਫਿਰ ਉਦੋਂ ਚ ਹੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਚੋਂ ਹੀ ਸਾਰੇ stalwarts ਥੋੜੇ ਨਿਕਲ ਆਏ. Whether they were Punjabi Muslims who were already living here like Dilip Kumar, or Punjabis like Raj Kapoor, and then those who came like Rajinder Kumar and Sunil Dutt and all that. So I think it's a lot to do with how the history plays out. Like, why are there a lot of Jews in Hollywood, and why have they attained such powerful positions? Because that's the community which moved a lot, because they were being whatever was happening to them in Germany. So one has to always. These are not accidents. These are, I think, the outcomes or the byproducts of history, and always good to study, and one should, rather than just arriving at a conclusion.
Then this final question,
Thank
Jubilee.
you.
I mean, when Jubilee came, there were a lot of guessing games. You know, who's this character fashioned after? Is this Raj Kapoor? Is this Dilip Kumar? Is this Ashok Kumar? Whatever. I mean, people were drawing their own conjectures. Were you enjoying this
Anji.
guessing game? And did you definitely have you had some actors in mind while writing those characters, or they were actually a mix?
No, we had no actors in mind, to be honest. We were just going for the spirit of the era, not the people of the era. So And yes, we were enjoying that people are trying to guess. मतलब हम रोज बैठ के हंसते थे 1 1 घंटा 2 2 घंटा कि वाह कोई नहीं समझ पा रहा है.
Right, okay, and hoping to see more of your work, and especially
Thank you,
looking
Nonit.
forward to, especially looking forward to Berlin. And thanks so much for
Thank
your time. And we've been enjoying your work and enjoyed this conversation so much. Thank you so much.
thank you.